First, friends and family members coming together today to celebrate the lives of the 3 victims in last month's Manatee County triple homicide. Good evening and welcome to ABC 7 News at 6:30. I'm Jordan Litwiller. 3 different funerals held today as loved ones said their final goodbyes. First to Sherelle Carter, one of 3 Manatee County women fatally shot by Javontee Brice, who later died in a shootout with officers near the Florida-Georgia line. Investigators saying Carter was in a relationship with one of Brice's ex-girlfriends. ABC 7's Rob Wells with a look at the heartbreak being felt by so many.
Friends and family keep images of Sherelle Carter close to their hearts as they plan to say goodbye.
She was everything a father could ask for. My uncle, he loved his girls. He loved them up until they got grown. I'm gonna miss her.
People packing into the George Potter building at the Sarasota County Fairgrounds to celebrate Carter's life. This after she was fatally shot nearly 2 weeks ago.
Why her? Like, why? And I just broke down crying. And
her kind heart as unforgettable as her nickname.
It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot I could tell you about Pig. She,
Where did that come from? I saw that and I'm
nickname.
like, wait a minute, what's that? Okay.
Nickname.
Okay.
And it is Pig with 2 G's, so she'd be mad if you spell it with 1 G.
The shock of losing Carter felt along the Suncoast.
I can tell you Pig was a person of love. Everybody, the community, from Sarasota to Bradenton, from Bradenton to Tampa, she was well known.
Though taken too soon, those on hand say Carter's love and spirit will get them through.
I'm just gonna miss her, that's all.
Rob Wells, ABC 7, your local station.
On June 24th, 2024, over the course of just 1 hour, 3 women were brutally gunned down in separate locations across Manatee County, Florida. Their common thread? Each was intimately connected to the shooter. First, his mother. Second, his cousin. And third, the new partner of an ex-girlfriend. The man at the center of this carnage, 28-year-old Javontee Brice from Hillsborough County, Florida, an individual known to only a small circle, but harboring deep emotional fractures. In an apartment that same evening, Brice confronted his ex-girlfriend directly. A witness reports that he looked her in the eye and said in a chillingly flat tone, "I have to kill you." That phrase marked the point from which everything spiraled. Nothing would ever again be the same. So what turned a son, cousin, brother, once the subject of whispered affection, into a murderer? What buried secrets exploded into daylight that night? And why was this evening different? This, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of a family obliterated by betrayal, bullets, and finality. The body was wrecked, but the cracks had been showing for years. Javontee Brice wasn't widely known or feared, yet among family, exes, and a few friends who remained, he carried a reputation as emotionally volatile, unstable, and dangerously obsessive. Records show he'd encountered law enforcement multiple times, never landing in prison, but enough for official concerns. In one instance, a family member called police after Brice reportedly threatened self-harm during a confrontation, a recurring pattern, not an isolated event. Witnesses described him in hushed tones, paranoid, erratic, an insatiable need for validation. One former friend, whose name later vanished from Facebook, wrote, "He always said he was misunderstood, but there was something off. Always watching, always accusing. It was like he lived in constant defense mode." This testimony, now archived, paints a man isolating himself by suspicion, and online activity deepened the unease. Brice used the pseudonym Scuda Brice on Facebook. His posts ranged from philosophical musings to passive aggression, then gradually darkened. By early 2024, his status updates began to include ominous phrases, dead weight, fake love, and chillingly prescient, "You'll all feel it when it's too late." Close to the final hours, his last posts appeared minutes before the killings began. "Pig, I love you, but you had to go. See you in hell." These were not idle words. They were final statements, stark and foreboding. Yet, outwardly, Brice lacked the hallmarks of a typical killer. No gang affiliations, no tattoos, no violent felony record. What he carried, instead, was internal ruin, a rotted desperation for understanding, drifting into control, morphing into destruction. People did try to help. Family, occasional friends, but over time, many withdrew. They pointed to mood swings, controlling behavior in romantic attachments, moments when Brice threatened self-harm if things didn't go his way. And then came the stalking, silent digital observation, obsessive tracking. This was not a man who could let go once a relationship ended. He hovered, waited, planned. Sheriff Rick Wells later told reporters, "He seemed to have an agenda. He knew exactly who he wanted to kill, and he didn't have a hard time locating them. This was no coincidence. This was calculated vengeance." By June 2024, those close to him say Brice had become increasingly isolated, hostile, focused on his exes. Some suspect emotional rejection spurred his dissent, but the precise trigger on that fateful night remains unconfirmed. We had the signs, in police files, in digital footprints, in the pleas of others who tried to intervene. And yet, no one fully pieced the puzzle together until it was already too late. At approximately 8:45 p.m., as dusk settled over Palmetto Trace Apartments, everything seemed normal until Brice appeared at the apartment of his sister and the mother of his child. Investigators confirmed the visit was not casual. He slipped in unannounced, tension visible in his posture, voice clipped. The conversation froze. And then he confronted the mother of his child and spoke. "I have to kill you." His voice was flat, intentional, not a scream, not a plea, just absolute determination. His sister reacted, calmly inserted herself between him and the ex. No panic, no screams, but her calm worked temporarily. Brice hesitated, then asked something strange. "Can I take a shower?" The request hung in the air. Was he stalling? Trying to normalize one last moment? They refused. He moved past them, out the door, into his car quietly, methodically. No door slam, no yelling, just departure. And no one called 911. That was the calm before the storm. Less than 30 minutes later, the first gunshots rang out. At 9:15 p.m., Brice reached a Motel 6 on 67th Street Circle East in Bradenton, room 112. Inside, his mother, 48-year-old Tidamisha Scott, stayed with her boyfriend and two younger daughters, Brice's sisters. Eyewitnesses report he entered calmly, walked up to his mother, and whispered, "I'm sorry." She responded, "What did you do?" Then 3 gunshots echoed. She collapsed, blood spreading across white motel sheets. Her daughter screamed. Her boyfriend sprang forward. Witnesses described it as sheer pandemonium. Brice showed no panic, no hesitation. He walked out as calm as he arrived. Deputies arrived, found Tidamisha dead, and issued a BOLO alert on Brice's vehicle. The act was surgical, cold, clinical, and utterly deliberate. One horrifying life extinguished. 3 more would fall before the hour ended. About 25 minutes later, the second victim. Sequoia Coco Brice, 29, Brice's cousin, fresh from her birthday celebration at Siesta Key. Her mother, Matilda Dubois, recalled Coco saying she had no plans, but joy filled her words, seemingly content from the morning's family gathering. The evening turned catastrophic. Around 9:40 p.m., she walked toward her silver SUV during a Palmetto family cookout. A man appeared. She froze, then recognized him, Javontee Brice. Sheriff Wells confirmed. Brice shot his cousin as she was attempting to get into her SUV. A single gunshot struck her instantly. Bystanders rushed. Paramedics administered emergency aid on the car trunk. She was taken to hospital but succumbed roughly an hour later, her bright life snuffed out. Her 2 young sons, ages 9 and 8, left orphaned once again, this time by bloodshed. A GoFundMe later disclosed heartbreaking details. The family was preparing a funeral rather than a planned trip. She was taken away from us senselessly. One day after her 29th birthday, read the memorial message. Within 10 minutes, the third life was claimed. By around 10:04 p.m., Brice arrived on 51st Street in Bradenton, stopping outside the residence of 31-year-old Cheryl Pig Carter, the new partner of one of his ex-girlfriends. Known for her warmth, optimism, and caring spirit, Cheryl was quietly preparing for the evening at home with her son Carson. Without warning, gunshots rang out either through a window or as she opened the door. She collapsed. Neighbors described the aftermath as chaotic, with frantic 911 calls. Paramedics rushed her to HCA Florida Blake Hospital, but she did not survive. Police later confirmed her identity and connection to Brice's romantic past. Cheryl never saw it coming, and the final bullet made it clear Javontee had a list, and he wasn't done yet. At this point, authorities released a statewide BOLO for Brice's blue vehicle. It was clear this was premeditated. He was likely heading to Georgia, targeting yet another ex. Law enforcement from Manatee County, Hamilton County, and Florida, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement pooled efforts and kept a close eye on interstate routes. In the early hours of June 25th, between 1:25 and 1:30 a.m., deputies located Brice's car at an ExxonMobil station off I-75 at exit 451, just before the Georgia state line. Brice was not alone. A woman was seated beside him. She raised her hands in surrender. She was later cleared of involvement. Brice exited the vehicle, armed. Within seconds, gunfire erupted. Deputies unleashed a volley of approximately 40 to 50 rounds. Brice was struck, collapsed, and died at the scene. The woman fled and was interviewed. Nothing linked her to the crime. It was over. 3 women dead. 3 families in ruins. 3 funerals. Countless shattered lives. Victim profiles. Sequoia Coco Brice, 29, a certified nursing assistant with aspirations toward becoming an RN. She loved old-school R&B, laughter, and her 2 young sons. A planned trip to Kissimmee replaced by her funeral. Tidamisha Pi Scott, 48, a beloved matriarch of 12 children and 7 grandchildren. Cook, caretaker, prayer warrior, her final moments witnessed by her daughters. Cheryl Pig Carter, 31, an administrative assistant whose presence was both quiet and unforgettable. She leaves behind young son Carson. Her obituary overflowed with heartfelt tributes. Investigation insights. Brice left no manifestos, no suicide notes, but he did leave digital evidence. His final posts on Facebook, under Scuda Brice, were chillingly clear. Pig, I love you, but you had to go. See you in hell. Toxicology reports showed no drugs or substances, no emergency calls, no pre-shooting mental collapse, just a silent descent into violence. Authorities revealed Brice had been subject to 2 risk protection orders, once in 2021 and once in 2023. He'd been flagged, but not deemed a high risk. The oversight is now haunting. Communal aftermath. Candlelight vigils flicker in neighborhoods. Balloon releases punctuate quiet skies. Funeral notices fill social media. Stories, photos, happy memories now soured by tragedy. In one haunting moment, Sequoia's youngest son released a balloon skyward, standing next to a weeping aunt. Her mother's whisper still echoes. Her smile could brighten anybody's day. She had so much life still to live. Closing reflection. What transforms a once familiar face into a vessel of brutality? What signals did we disregard? And when someone begins to fall apart, who is truly watching? This was no random shooting. It was a hate-fueled execution of trust and blood, a premeditated nightmare. We may never fully understand why Javontee Brice crossed that line, but we cannot unsee what he did. If this story moved you, drop your thoughts in the comments. Share it. Subscribe to Sinister Tales for more unfiltered, real-life stories. Because every name deserves to be remembered, and every truth deserves to be told.